Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and I have a fun video for y'all today, and I'm going to be giving an early review and share my initial impressions of the Legendary server in the Lord of the Rings Online. So I'll be specifically talking about my experience in Anor, but I assume it'll still apply to Ithil and the other Legendary server as well. The gameplay in the background will be on my Warden on the Legendary server Anor, and I'm trying to get her up in the levels a bit as I can start working on her to do some group content. So the first thing I have to talk about is that I'm really enjoying the Legendary server experience overall. It almost feels like playing the game like it is new. Even though I have done this content a bunch of times, it may just be the sense of community that makes it feel like that now and makes it feel new. And also just all the people running around at low levels, I think, kind of makes it feel new in a way too. Which it is a new server actually, but it is still the same LOTRO like I mentioned. And anyway, I think it is really good thing going for the server that it feels like that. And another thing I just mentioned is all the people running around questing and being helpful. It brings a nice community to the server that reminds me of the good community LOTRO has been praised for in the past. People are crafting stuff for free, some others for very cheap, or just sharing mats and just all that type of stuff that really makes it seem like a nice community. And I think that's just nice to see and makes me think more positively of the server. So on the topic of the sense of the community on the server, running instances and group content is quite fun. That is one of the big selling points of the server, of course, is that everybody is low level and can run the low level stuff with an on level group. And this is an area where the server does really deliver. And there are people searching for groups for instances, and I personally love doing instances at low levels near their initial level range before scaling was added to the game. So that part's really good with the server. Overall, the increased population and population density, more specifically, of people doing the same content in the game makes it feel much more fun. I think this really emphasizes the multiplayer part of MMORPG. And right now the game just feels a lot more social, and oddly enough, World Chat actually seems more friendly than usual. This could be an artifact of the server being VIP only, so you may not get as many like free-to-play trolls or spammers. And I don't really say that to put down all the free-to-players, but I just see a lot less of this stuff on the server, and that is probably a contributing factor. And another thing is the level 50 cap itself appears to have a big impact on the enjoyability of the game for me and other people. Since the levels and content range is so much more limited than the normal servers, more people are focused on the same thing, like low-level questing, and compared to the normal servers where you have like some sort of event, it seems like, is always going on to split players, and there's just a very large range of content to be leveling in. Different content you can do at in-game, a lot more crafting, a large focus on cosmetics even, and even more focus on exploring the huge zones. Just all that type of stuff I just mentioned is nice for options to do different things in the game. But overall, LOTRO is unfortunately not a very populated game considering how much content it holds, so having the content limited to levels 1 through 50 really focuses all the players on more similar things. And that brings us back to community working together on similar things, and right now that is mainly leveling in low-level instances, so it feels a lot more populated. And another thing the level 50 cap does is it limits the gap between brand new players and a seasoned veteran who is only level 50 levels higher than brand new player. And while there is definitely a skill gap there, overcoming 50 levels to jump into Shadows of Angmar content is much less of a burden to worry about compared to 120 levels like in the normal servers right now. So now if a player solely looks for the journey in LOTRO and doesn't really care about in-game, this isn't that much of a big deal. But I often see people worried that they are way behind and they can never catch up, since there have been many years of LOTRO content expansions and a lot of levels to overcome for in-game or even PvP, which I admittedly don't really participate too much in, so can't comment too much on that one. But yeah, having that smaller gap really, I think, can make the server more appealing to new players who want to be closer to the other players that are already towards the end game. So I think I have emphasized the community enough, but it is just something very important to the server, I think. And the final thing I really have about the community is that the server brought a lot of old players back. For me, this includes old kinmates and old friends that I used to play LOTRO with a lot more often, and whether that was just leveling or in-game or just whatever, again, that feels really good to see those players and being able to play with them again. So the next thing I'll talk about is the reduced XP, or the story pace debuff as it's called, which is the server-wide 40% decrease in XP gain. This helps you, like it says, stay within the level of whatever you're doing and not out-level the story real fast, and if people want to level faster, they still have the option of using the Hammer Hand Shield pocket item, Mortar Necklace, and even actually XP buffs or boosts. So I really like that. I think it's a good pace so far, minus 40%. Seems to work well for everything I've done from what I have played on the server. And again, the slow leveling can loop back to the community, but I'll go ahead and move on past that and I'll talk about loot boxes now, which I have seen none of in the servers. Now, I'm not actually sure if there are loot boxes in the server or not, but however it is right now, feels pretty fine to me. Loot boxes feel non-existent. I don't know if they actually are, again, non-existent. But I will remind you all that this is my initial impressions from quite a few hours of playing, probably about 20 to 30 overall, and I haven't gotten level 50, and again, I haven't seen loot boxes, but the whole point of this is they don't seem relevant, and that just feels good to me. So as you can probably tell by now, I really enjoy the server, and I'm super glad that Standing Stone Games released it. One thing I have yet to get to, but I'm looking forward to, is the endgame, since I haven't really enjoyed endgame LOTRO since Mordor, to be honest. I'm hoping and expecting I'll enjoy the level 50 endgame much more in this server. So we'll have to see where that leads. I'll probably do an updated review video once I actually get into more content, like after a few months, if the server still holds up, which again, I'm hoping it will. So far it's really fun, and if it keeps at this pace, I will still be enjoying it then. So overall, there have been a lot of positives for my experience on the server so far. There have been some negatives that I haven't gone over yet, but I want to share with y'all, and I do want to mention that I'll be going more over these in a criticisms in a future video where I will also share some actual suggestions for changes. But for this video, I just want to bring these up since the overall experience of the Legendary servers is very positive so far. I just want to briefly mention some of the negative stuff I have experienced. So the first thing is gear is very inconsistent. Update 23 changed the way stats work, and a lot of gear was modified to have their stats largely increased, and some gear did not really get properly scaled when this happened and is extremely weak now. The most obvious one to me was initially crafted gear, and this is crafted gear that's not made from weaponsmiths or armorsmiths, so basically nothing metal. So woodworkers, tailor, and jewelers, I believe that's all the other ones. All the gear made by those professions is extremely weak, and the professions that make metal weapons and heavy armor again is scaled more properly, and I think this just really disrupts the crafting experience and sense of progression, even the desire to craft these items, so that doesn't feel too good overall. Additionally, some gear drops and quest rewards appear to not scale well as well. Weapon DPS can be something that's inconsistent, and some item could have, just for example, like at the same item level, two items could have, one could have 4 agility, another could have 16 agility. It's kind of crazy stuff like that that's just very inconsistent. And the other thing I've noticed is that gear from skirmish camp is also not scaled properly. The gear was already not great to begin with, but it could fill some gaps, and now it's just even worse. And this includes some gear from the classic vendor as well, I think. So I'm honestly not entirely sure how all the gear from this vendor scales because I haven't really gotten to that point yet, but definitely the lower level stuff around 20 to 30 is not scaled properly and is very weak statted. Again, something it's unfortunate to see because bartering for gear for my marks and medallions is something I really like to do, and at least like to fill some gear gaps. It would be really nice to be able to do that, but that gear appears to be very weak and wouldn't even be useful. So on this topic of gear and its scaling since the update 23 changes, primary stats were made much less effective. Getting a huge upgrade of about 50 will on my level 20 lore master only got him about a 3 to 4% damage boost. I actually calculated it out. And that just did not feel good to get that huge upgraded weapon I got and barely even notice anything different on my skills. And honestly, this wouldn't be much of a problem if a 50 will boost was pretty normal. But a lot of gear was around maybe 30 of the main stat if you were actually fortunate enough to pick up a piece of gear with your main stat. And for my lore master, that being will, most of the gear I saw actually had fate or might and agility, and I don't need might and agility. That was kind of annoying, but right now it just overall feels really clunky how stats work. And while it may actually be overall smooth gameplay wise, I don't quite feel it's fully smooth, but I think that was the intention of their whole update 23 stat and scaling changes and all that stuff. Gearing while leveling feels a lot less rewarding, less significant, and just overall less impactful, to put the same thing 3 different ways basically. And yeah, just less impactful to my character and experience playing the servers. And this is just another thing that I would like to see improved, but fixing the gear scaling issues might just naturally fix that issue about the primary stats being less effective and not really feeling like I'm getting upgraded. So the last big thing I have is instances don't feel rewarding at all. At least at low levels they don't. So Great Barrows gives literally no loot besides bounties, which just sell for a few silver. There's nothing else you get. Well, you do get like money loot, but who really wants to run major instances and come out with nothing? I definitely want to come out with something. I think gear should be added back to instances at low levels. Right now, instance gear only drops at level 40 and above. I believe it might be 45, just somewhere around there and above. And some instances do drop normal loot, but something like Great Barrow doesn't, and it just feels unrewarding doing the instance. And even though doing the instance is fun, getting nothing out of it makes me not want to run it again, and this could also help alleviate some of the 2 other issues I talked about. So at the end here, I want to mention again my initial experience is playing for about 20 to 30 hours or so, and I only picked up on those about 3 major issues, and the server is still overwhelmingly enjoyable. And it's just always easy to be critical of things, and I'm definitely loving the Legendary server and hope it continues to be fun in the future. I am interested in what you all think on the server, so please do comment with your thoughts if you maybe agree or disagree with some of my opinions, or just have some other stuff that I missed in this. I'm interested to hear all that. Otherwise, I will be continuing streaming my experience on Anor. If you caught my first 2 streams, they combined for 13 hours total, my definitely longest streams, and that itself should show how much I'm enjoying the server. And since I am enjoying the server so much, it has motivated me to make more guides and other content that I haven't done in a while, like leveling builds, which it seems like a lot of people have been missing from a lot of the comments I've been reading lately. And as for this video, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope it was useful to you, and if you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing for more, and thanks for watching everyone.